or what?
Listen, for this article, for the Radar piece, I spoke with a lot of constitutional lawyers. John Whitehead, for example, former Reagan official. Bruce Fein, another former Reagan, Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Every one of these guys I spoke to said the same thing. They said that in the event of the next 9/11, it's over. The country's over.
Really?
The republic is gone. I mean, Daniel Ellsberg said the same thing. Francis Boyle, who's a human rights lawyer, actually worked. He was a counsel to Henry Gonzalez when Henry Gonzalez was trying to get some oversight on a lot of these same issues about COG and about Roundup plans. Every one of these guys I've spoken to, they all say, yeah, the same thing, that in the event of the kind of 9/11 that Al-Qaeda is said to be planning, that is, something along those lines of a nuclear attack or something bigger than 9/11, that, everything is in place for the destruction of the Republic.
Well, now, I gotta wonder, it seems to me like after September 11th, America was all right. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of grief and that sort of thing, but our economy didn't buckle a little bit, but, basically we all kept going to work every day and everything's been all right, unless, you're an Iraqi or something. Why should we think that we would need any kind of martial law to help us get through? It seems like if there is a terrible crisis, letting people go about their day in the best way they know how is the best way to survive as a country.
Well, of course, but naturally, yeah. Who in their right mind doesn't agree with that? But these are not people in their right mind. These are power-hungry bureaucrats who are security obsessed, who live within a infrastructure that is all about security and control and full-spectrum dominance. And bureaucracies naturally like to accrue power. Once they accrue that power, they don't like to give it up. So we're talking about, I would characterize them as little bespectacled creatures whose asses are bigger than their shoulders, sitting in cubicles somewhere, coming up with all these nefarious plans.
Yeah, and I guess when a crisis happens, they get to put it in effect, no matter how unreasonable it is. 9/11 happens, they get to write it all up. The next one, they get to put it into effect just because they can imagine it, and nobody's there to stop them.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the crazy legislation that was passed just after 9/11, the USA Patriot Act. I mean, complete and total lunacy. Yet it passed with nary an outcry. It just slipped on by. So, yeah.
Well, so tell me, Chris, Christopher Ketcham, Radar Magazine, you and are we on the red list or the blue list, you think?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, listen, I never got someone inside government telling me, yes, absolutely, this list exists, and here it is. All I got are sort of various sources, numerous sources, all corroborating each other, saying, yes, there is a list out there. It's highly secret. It's got limited access. It can be accessed only in limited fashion by certain officials. And I could never get into the database itself, which would have been, of course, a coup. But
Well, now, something that's probably puzzling to most, and I guess even to me at least a bit, is the question of the 8 million of us that I guess have been flagged as some level of a problem or something like that. Well, there's not nearly enough cops to keep track of us all. How do they know so much about 8 million of us?
Well, listen, and that's the thing about it. Computerization, digitization of all our personal data and our movements and our behaviors just makes it far easier to centralize this information. I mean, you can aggregate huge amounts of information on the person simply by tracking their Google searches and tracking who they're calling, who they're not necessarily gathering content on their phone conversations, but simply who they call, the email, the addresses of the emails to which they send the emails, the addresses of the emails from which they receive their.
I am so screwed.
Their purchasing habits on Amazon, the books, music, etc. that they purchase, library lending. You name it, all this stuff can be gathered up through huge social network analysis systems, so computers, digitization allows for an incredible expansion of this invasive arm of government into privacy. It's just a natural outflow of that new technology.
So the computers themselves, I guess, their software They have programs to decide, whether or not you or I are worth paying attention to?
Yeah, they've got these very complex, they're called social network analysis systems or block modeling systems where, they're going to look at all your various behaviors and your internet activity, and they're going to look at your travel patterns, tickets you buy for airplanes, ferries, bus tickets, and sort of aggregate all that data and then try to draw up a picture of the person. I was told by one source that actually Maine Corps also has a database of voice prints. For example, if this call, I'm calling you from France right now, so there's an international call. So under what we know is we know that under the terrorist surveillance program, it will be quote unquote legal for NSA to listen into this conversation because ostensibly NSA's operations are only to track international calls coming in and out of the United States. So imagine they have your voice print on this centralized system or my voice print. They might then the computer will be able to correlate that to all the various personal data in Maine Corps and then perhaps record the conversation. That is, gather the content of the conversation rather than just the information, the phone number called from and called to, et cetera.
Right. I guess the main thing that I want to focus on here is the computerization of all of this. They've basically outsourced the decision-making to the computers, too. You have here in your article, you say that there's a database called the Terrorist Identities Data Mart Environment, which is supposed to be a list of all the terrorists in the world, and it's nearly 500,000 people. And we're not talking about Osama and his friends here at all.
Yes. 500,000 people. And it's probably, that was, as of 2007, it was growing. It is always growing. So I would assume that maybe we have it more like 550,000, 600,000 names in that list. How do you become a terrorist under this rubric? I don't know. I don't know what kind of modeling system they're using. Well, it could be simply associative stuff where, I make a call to a guy named Muhammad, and, maybe Muhammad is selling a mountain bike, and I make a call to Muhammad. I want to pick up his mountain bike. That call gets tracked. Suddenly I'm within the network. Could be as simple as that. And Muhammad, of course, may have some connections to other unseemly Arabs, and et cetera, et cetera.
It's almost like it's a government's computerized conspiracy theory program. Well, in many ways it is. If Scott knows Christopher Ketcham, and Christopher Ketcham knows this other guy, and Scott knows this other guy, well, then there may very well be something going on there where they're planning something or whatever. But meanwhile,
exactly.
It's their computer's imagination.
Massive computerized guilt by association.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is a violation of the Constitution. It's a violation of one of the amendments. I'm not sure which, but you're not supposed to be. There's a very specific clause in the bill in the various amendments that states that guilt by association is not to be allowed.
Well, I don't know about that exact phrase in the Bill of Rights, but certainly in American law, they don't tolerate that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what we're talking about is a post-constitutional situation where they don't even pretend to go by it anymore, and they're not even pretending that there's a law that binds their power. The military, martial law, this is what martial law means. I like how James Bovard, in his article for the American Conservative magazine, Working for the Clampdown, explained, martial law means you do what that soldier says or get shot, period.
Yeah.
So it's not the same thing as, National Guard soldiers helping out after a flood or something.
No, well, obviously not. I think constitutionally, if there is some sort of compromise of the federal government, or the centralized government, I think constitutionally the governors become the supreme heads of the land, and each of the states then deals with its own problems. And so the 50 states, the states break up, and again, the governors become the de facto heads of each of the regions. Wow.
Well, it's a funny thing, man. I don't have any information I'm really going on here, but just my gut tells me that this isn't going to happen for a long time, if ever. What we're really talking about, think about the trouble that anybody would have, the U.S. military, FEMA, or every cop combined in this country. Think of the trouble they would have really trying to conquer America in the sense of, shutting down the economy, throwing millions of people in camps, and turning this place into a totalitarian nightmare. It doesn't seem like it would work very well at all.